The best time to fix a bug or outage is before your customers notice. Seek just released a brand new alerting implementation that takes structured log data from your apps and triggers notifications in Teams, Slack, or email. You decide which events are important to you, and Seek does the rest. Find out more about Seek at datalust.co/SEQ. That's datalust.co/SEQ. Seek. Hi, I'm Scott Hansel, and this is another episode of Hansel Minutes. Today I'm talking with Annyce Davis. She's a Senior Director of Engineering at Meetup. She's been a software group lead at other companies, as well as 7 years working at the Washington Post creating mobile applications. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Scott.
Thanks for hanging out. So you've had a really cool career journey, and you're like really an Android person. You've decided that you're Android and you're mobile. Have you always been like Team Green Bubble, or how did that happen?
No, I wouldn't say I've always been the Team Green Robot, but it was sort of a gradual thing. I definitely started out really heavy in a Java background. And earlier on in my career, I was really fascinated by mobile devices. As soon as I got my first one, I think it was like a BlackBerry back then, and you could do J2ME. So I actually started doing some mobile development back then, just for fun. And eventually I was able to transition like my Java skills over into Android development.
So the first time you had a physical device, you were like, "This is where it's at." You weren't thinking like, because you could have made web pages, you could have done JSP. Starting in Java, you could have done anything.
Yeah, it's really tricky when you're a programmer and you tell your family, like, this is what I do, I'm a programmer. They want to see the proof. And when I first started in my journey, I was working at Lockheed Martin and we were on like a government contract. I can't really say, like, look, everybody, this is what I do. But when you have something physically in your hand and you say, I made this, finally everyone understands to some extent what you do. And I think that is what I still find really exciting today about mobile development.
That's interesting. I never actually thought about it like that. That's really true though, because if I tell my parents like, "Go to this URL," they're like, "Eh." But if I'm like, "Look at this, I made that," and they're like, they hold it and they look, and then they show everybody at Christmas. That's like more real.
That's so real to them. And it's just like a really powerful thing to be able to develop things that people use day in and day out.
hmm And I think that one of the things, and this is from reading, on your blog and reading all and looking at all of your videos, that one of the things that you also liked about it was the idea of multiple form factors. Like once you learn Java, can run it anywhere. Once you learn Android, you can run it anywhere. So when you were at the Washington Post, you made like 7 different form factors of the same app, right?
Yeah, that was really fun. Back when the Google TV first came out, we were able to get in early and get one of the early devices, and it looks nothing like what people have today. But the huge keyboards and us trying to figure out the controls. But because I had that Android expertise, I was able to get in on that project. And one thing that was really cool about that was getting exposure to video on mobile. I knew nothing about video whatsoever, like different types of video files, understanding the skipping, the preloading, all of that. I knew nothing. But based on my experience with Android, I was able to develop the app for the Google TV. And then we started with the largest Google TV, and then we went backwards. So we said, okay, then let's make this thing for tablets. Okay, now let's make it for phone. And it was just really cool to be able to work on a project that could span multiple form factors like that.
Interesting. You said that you started at the biggest form factor and worked downwards. Aren't we supposed to do the opposite? Isn't it mobile first?
Yeah, which was interesting that it went that way. The whole project was so speculative. Like, can we take Washington Post video and make it something interesting? Can we even do this? Um, and getting to be early when there was like also Google TV, and then they came out with Chromecast, getting to be sort of like the pioneers of that work was exciting, especially for a company like Washington Post at the time, which wasn't known to be this like, technology company. So being able to be involved and be on the forefront of that was pretty amazing.
That's actually an interesting point. When I think about the Washington Post, I think about the physical paper, and I haven't thought about that as being a particularly progressive from a technology perspective. Uh, but I think about it now. It's on my mom's Fire TV, and it's on like it was one of the earliest
Exactly.
apps. It was on every Amazon device well before Bezos got involved.
Yeah. I don't know if you even remember that Amazon device that had like the weird 3D spheres for icons. I can't even remember what it was called now. Like maybe 10 people had it, but we even designed it for that. So yeah, we designed it for Roku. We also were there on Apple TV before it was like actually using the official SDK. It was like JavaScript and XML. So I mean, honestly, it was a really great project to get in when all of these technologies were just being born.
So you've been doing Android since Jump, and you're also an Android Google developer expert. So you're recognized by Google as being an expert in Android. I'm unfortunately Team iPhone, but I have done a lot of Android development, and I found it to be really kind of confusing. There's a lot of different versions. There's a lot of different form factors. There's almost this matrix of like versions times code times form factor. So there's this Cartesian product of complexity when it comes to Android. How do you keep up on all of that technology?
In the beginning, it was tough for sure. Um, but as the years go by, the Android team at Google definitely recognized that. And they've been working to create this series of what they're calling like their Jetpack components. So these are libraries where you just say, I need to have someone take a picture in my app. Here's the library that you use. And it works all the way back, like 10 versions. So they don't have to think to themselves like, oh, what do I do for if I need to support version, 18 over version 24. So it's actually a lot easier than it used to be. I'm like that, get off my lawn. I remember when I had to calculate the size of the bitmap before I showed it on screen. That's the world that I came from, but now it's like use this library.
Oh,
It automatically does all that for you. So
okay.
there's so much advancement there where you don't have to be as even cognizant of what's happening between the different versions because they've created this basically abstraction layer for you.
hmm Okay, that makes sense because the last time I was looking at Android was kind of pre that world, and now that's called Jetpack Compose. And I know that you've had blog posts on how to do, Jetpack Compose apps and testing them and things like that. So that
Yep.
Jetpack Compose is that toolkit that does those native APIs and that hides a lot of the complexity from you.
Yeah, so they have several different Jetpack libraries. They have like Jetpack Compose, there's a database, there's like network. So they have different libraries that cover Jetpack Camera. So you just decide like, well, what functionality do I need in my app? Okay, it looks like I'm going to need these six libraries, or I might need these four libraries, and then you go from there. And that definitely helps a lot with making it more beginner friendly.
Being friendly to beginners is a thing that's kind of a theme that I've noticed through your career. You've done lynda.com and LinkedIn learning classes. You've got YouTube videos and public speaking where you've presented how to create your own Android applications. Why do you do that? Like you don't have to give back. You could just not give back, but you choose to. I'm curious what drives that.
I think there's a couple of factors. So, number one, I just love to learn and I love to teach. Teaching is a natural extension of learning for me. I know that when I want to learn something new, the best way for it to really stick is to teach it to someone else. And then the other piece is acknowledging the privilege that I've had in my life due to being able to program, knowing that my life could have turned out differently if I didn't have this skill set. And I think about the places I've been able to visit, the people I've been able to meet, the things that I get to enjoy, the sushi that I eat when I want it. I want other people to eat sushi when they feel like it. So it, I'm definitely, it's not scalable to do it on a one on one basis, even though like I find a lot of pleasure in helping to mentor others. But the best way that I know to help as many people as possible is by putting out the content for the community.
I really like the way that you phrased that. Like I think about that stuff myself. I've got another interview coming soon. with a famous person who is like got $1 billion, and I asked this, and I don't get to hang out with billionaires, right? It's just not a thing. And I was like mentioning that food security was a big part of the reason that I got into software, and this billionaire was like, the heating bill still stresses me out. I'm like, you have $1 billion.
What?
You have an island. Like you have a literal island in the Caribbean somewhere. Like you bought it. You know what I mean? And like and it's like, yeah, but I still remember looking at the heating bill and going, do I have the money to do this thing here? So that idea of like, yeah, I can eat sushi whenever I want to. Like that's a really powerful thing. So I'm hearing in your voice and in your story that the power that you have and that I have to be able to make stuff is a feeling that everyone should have.
Absolutely. Right? Like a lot of it is just fortuitous. This happened to be where I was at this time, at that moment, where this industry is lucrative, and it could have been something different. So as long as that's still true, which it is for sure, we're definitely in a very lucrative industry. Why not help other people get a piece of it? There's so much work to be done. I'm more than happy to bring others into the fold.
That's a really good attitude. Yeah, your success does not take away from my success. There is enough room for everybody to make these things that we make these apps and make these websites.
Absolutely.
So when did you start moving from individual contributor to manager now? Because you're a director of engineering now and a senior director of engineering. How did you float up into management? But also you're still very technical and you haven't lost track of that.
It was certainly baby steps. I remember I was running from management, like literally running, tennis shoes on. I have to stay technical. I don't want to be in meetings all day. That's I'll just die, Like so, it was so extreme. And it started with just one direct report. Like, okay, can I help this one person? I want to focus on helping their career, making sure they grow technically, and great, just one person. And then it was like, okay, I think I can handle two. All right, now I have a team. Well, now I have someone on my team who's not my specialty. So this is a new challenge. How do I interact with an engineer where they're working on Ruby development and I don't know anything about Ruby development? And it just was like a very gradual thing. And I realized that you don't have to always choose. It's not a zero sum game. I can still enjoy being a technical person, but I just want to be a technical person that doesn't block the engineering team from executing. I can be a technical person that fixes bugs every now and then, or upgrades a dependency, or has a side project where I learn about a new technology and I say, hey, team, look what I did. Do you think we could use this in our app? Well, who wants to take it from here? I can still be a technical person, but have a bigger impact on the company, the business, and people's careers. Like I said, I take management very seriously, and I know the impact that a great manager can have on your career, but also the impact that a sucky manager can have on your career, and I just never want to fall in that bucket.
Yeah. I heard this quote, I think it was on Twitter. Someone said that a bad manager will betray you. And that like hit me like a punch. And it's not like betray like in a Game of Thrones kind of betrayal,
Right.
but it's just like they will fundamentally screw up your career
Yeah.
in whether they mean to or not, you know.
Yep.
And having a good one is really significant. It sounds like impact like matters to you. You're having an impact online on your classes, and you're saying that by being a manager, you can have a bigger impact than even if you were a mythical 10x developer.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
you certainly can. And I find it interesting. I think I also saw something on Twitter the other day where it was saying that people just don't know what to do with someone who has multiple talents. And it's like I almost just like laughed out loud. So I was like, it's so true. Yeah, why can't I be interested in multiple things? I feel like management allows you that latitude.
Hmm.
Whereas if you're strictly an individual contributor, a lot of times, businesses may say like, "Oh, you're just code the feature," where if you're a manager, you get to be creative. You're planning events for the team. You might be writing some technical documentation. You might be contributing to code. You're helping with road mapping. You're like getting to use all of these different aspects of your personality and of your skills to help move things forward. And so I think that's another reason why management currently appeals to me.
Hmm. Do you think that everyone should be a manager? Is everyone wired to be a manager, or do people
No,
have certain? Okay, you said no immediately.
no. It's not for everybody. I don't think it's for everybody, and it's not to like toot my own horn, but you have to be comfortable with being behind the scenes. I don't think everyone is comfortable with that. You have to be comfortable with saying sorry and you're not wrong. There's so many aspects to it where I know some people's personalities won't allow them to push the ego to the side and be the manager that others need.
To be the manager that others need. Yes, I was looking. We have this internal internship group, like not internship, but like mentorship group rather, for people who are early in their careers. And someone made the suggestion that you should tell your manager how you prefer to be managed. And I was like, wow, that would have really been helpful advice like 20 years ago if someone had told me that, because I was just doing what they told me to do, but I never once told them how I would like to be managed. And that means like there are some people who want regular one-on-ones, and like if they don't talk to you twice a week, then they're uncomfortable. And then there's other people who are like, I don't need to see you for a month.
Right.
You know what I mean? They just give me my bonus, and I'll see you next year.
Approve my receipts. And that's it.
How have you found that? Do you manage them the way they want to be managed? Have you asked your team how they want to be managed?
I try to be intuitive, I guess, about what I notice. So some people, for example, they need me to co-sign on their priorities.
Mm.
They need me to say, yes, those are your priorities for the week. Now go for it. Other people, they don't need that. They know what their priorities are and they're like executing against it. I have some people who are more than happy to talk to me every 2 weeks. But then I have some people that need to talk to me twice a week. And I just kind of say like, okay, I get it. So this person needs like the beginning of the week check-in, end of the week check-in. We've got a weekly person here. This person is twice a week. This person tends to always focus on their current projects. So how can I push them to think a bit more long term? So every single report needs something special. I think that comes from being a parent. You know that no one child is like the other. So you can't just say the same thing to every kid, like, okay, it is bedtime. And each kid is like, good night, mom. There's one kid where it's like, it is bedtime in 45 minutes. It is bedtime in 30 minutes. Whereas the other one, you're like, just go to bed by 10 o'clock. It's so kind of taking that same approach to being a manager. I realized I can't just say the same thing to every single person and expect a similar outcome.
Yeah. Datadog is a monitoring, security, and analytics platform for developers, IT operations teams, security engineers, and business users in the cloud age. Their SaaS platform integrates and automates infrastructure monitoring, APM, and log management to provide unified, real-time observability of their customers' entire technology stack. Used by organizations of all sizes and across a wide range of industries, they enable digital transformation and cloud migration, accelerate time to market, reduce mean time to resolution, and track key business metrics. Give Datadog a try with a 14-day free trial. Listeners of the Hansel Minutes podcast will also receive a free Datadog t-shirt. Check them out at datadoghq.com/Hansel Minutes. That's datadoghq.com/Hansel One of the things that I struggle with both in parenting and with management is, like my wife has said, you're not your kid's friend. Like this is me and my kid, right? Like there is a hierarchy.
Yep.
I have the same problem where I want everyone at work to be my buddy. Hey, buddy, you know what I mean? And we're not buddies. And I'm like, why didn't you call me? And they're like, you're my boss. I didn't want to bother you. I'm like, no, I'm your bro. I'm your buddy. But how do you struggle with
You're
that?
not.
Have you ever found out that people were like, no, I didn't want to call you Annyce because you're kind of the boss. I know you're really busy.
I assume that I am not their friend. And because there's a power dynamic, whether I want to acknowledge it or not,
Hmm.
whether I'm like, hey, friend, how's it going this week? There's still this power dynamic there.
Yeah.
And so I'm always thinking about it. because I think about when I was starting out in my career and the director would come talk to me. I was nervous. I'm like, I don't want to say it's the wrong thing. I hope I don't say this, technical thing and it's wrong. And then the director's like, who hired this girl? So I think back to those moments and I try to put myself in their shoes like, okay, I'm really chill. They'll have no problem. It's like, no, I'm still the director. So I try to acknowledge like, okay, there's a power dynamic here. And even if I'm trying to put them at ease, I have to accept that maybe they're not telling me 100% how they feel about something.
Right.
They're leaving a few things out. I'm going to have to read between the lines. Some people's culture, the way they communicate is different. Okay, like, is there something there that I need to think about as well? And they say, oh, I'm fine. Are they really fine? What other pieces of information can I bring to this conversation to say, like, actually, no, you're not. Like, you've had like 10 dentist appointments the past 3 weeks. I don't know anyone that has that many teeth problems. Like just kind of looking at multiple pieces of data. But I'm always thinking about that. Like there's always going to be that power dynamic. And as much as I wish that people could just be like their 100% self with me, I know that they won't.
Mm. That point that you're making about about culture, when we as Americans think about culture, we're like, oh, they're from another country. But honestly, like I have people from Atlanta, and I have people from Philly, and I have people from the West Coast, and I'm from Portland. And Portland are basically Canadians. We apologize for everything. We're like, hello, I'm sorry, whatever it is, I'm sorry. So like the interpersonal dynamics are regional and complex about why
Yeah.
someone behaves the way that they behave. And I assume that you're leading a team and not everyone looks like you and it has the same
Right.
background as you.
Yep. It's a very diverse group. And even just being remote, that's another thing, right? That's another hurdle for building trust and understanding. And then even how does someone build trust? That's a cultural thing as well. I always like to talk about when I was working at Zola Electric and I had a lot of my team was based in Nigeria. I realized like they traditionally they build trust based on relationships, but I didn't have a relationship with anyone. I hadn't even been to Nigeria yet. So it's like, well, I'm just kind of coming in, this lady from America, and how am I supposed to build trust with people that I've never met in person? And I literally had to go to Nigeria and meet everyone to have a stronger relationship and to build more trust with my team. It was totally worth it. Great experience for me, but it just taught me the lesson that you can't make assumptions on how other people see you, how other people engage in business. If they say, I'll be there in 5 minutes, or I'll be there soon, or if I say, hey, do this as soon as you can, that means one thing to me. That could mean something else totally different to the other person. And so just being like explicit about what I'm looking for and what I mean, just how it's so important, especially when you're dealing with like such a diversity of people.
Isn't that crazy that like we're all stuck at home, we're all on the webcam right now, and it's been years. And I'm kind of glad that I'm not having to travel because it was exhausting. But at the same time, it is huge the relationship building that happens for a 90-minute chat in the lobby of the Hilton Hotel. And people will remember that. Like I've met people at South by Southwest 15 years ago that I still talk to, but it's not the same as if it's like a webcam like this. And then, of course, whenever I meet you in person in the future, I'll be like, "You're so much taller or shorter or whatever." Then
Yeah,
like the webcam, you were only 2 inches tall.
that's
You
the
know
number one topic of conversation when I meet coworkers. I'm like, whoa, you're way taller than I thought. Or, whoa, I am pretty tall.
exactly. I have absolutely no idea. You're about this tall right now, and that's it. And I appreciate that. Like I'm going to give a talk in Sweden on Thursday, and I don't have to go to Sweden. But at the same time, I'm like, maybe I should get on that plane and go to Sweden because I will connect more fundamentally with them and build that trust.
And it's also different just talking, like speaking of talking, presenting online. Like I've given a few online talks and the whole vibe is off. Like yeah, if you tell a joke, you're like, maybe it was
The
funny.
jokes are killing me. The jokes, the
Like,
silence after a bad joke is just awful.
Like, I maybe they laughed. I don't know. Or you know, it was like the facial expressions, the kind of little nods you would get from the audience, or somebody might cross their arm and kind of go, and you're like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, they're with me. They're with me on this. Okay, we're getting it. You sort of lose all of that if it's just
Yeah.
like your face presenting stuff on the screen.
I was giving a talk recently at a user group, and we started out and we did the little like chat before the group thing. And it was on a Zoom, and there was like 40 people, and they all had their cameras on. And it was really great. It was like, oh, wow, all these people. And they're like, okay, Scott's going to do his talk now. And then all the cameras shut off. And then I'm alone in my room. And like the lizard brain knows that you're alone. Like your
Yeah.
brain knows you're talking to yourself late at night in a dark room. And I'm looking
Hmm.
at myself. So it's like, I'm going to present to a mirror. So I said, hey, before I start, the 40 of you who just turned your cameras off, would you turn them back on, please? And about 10 or 15 did. And then I got that what's called the linguistic back channel when they're going, mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, the energy, so different.
It's so different. It's like I know one trick. So when I first started recording courses online, and they're always telling you like you need to smile when you're you know doing your content, just smile. Everyone can hear the smile in your voice, and they would say that. And then one video they were like, yeah, something was missing. Do you have like a picture or something available? I'm like, like of my kids? Like, sure. Just put that right beside your computer. And then you kind of glance at them every now and then. And it's just amazing the difference it makes in the tone that comes across. Because it's almost like I'm talking to my kids and I'm teaching them something. Like, hey, girls, look, like you just have a different feel. So it's always been like a little trick of mine where I'm like, okay, we're about to record. Can I see the pictures? Okay, let's do this. Let's go.
That is actually a great. I've never thought about that hack. I've always asked people to turn their cameras on, and I know that not everyone can. But the idea of having a picture of my family here right now, I actually have a little Lego Batman. I call him Fabulous Batman. He's pink and he has a fairy tutu on and wings, and he's also a ninja. So,
Wow.
because he can do anything, because he's Fabulous
He's
Batman.
he's he's
So
checking all the boxes.
he checks all the boxes. So he sits there, and I'm basically, about rubber duck debugging, right?
Yep.
Right. So he's my rubber duck. So whenever I have to debug something, I just explain it to Fabulous Batman, and then he's a good listener, and he'll tell me, okay, that's good, you're doing a good job. But I like the idea of having family pictures. You have a great class, by the way, that you did called Programming Foundations Fundamentals. It's got over 300,000 views on
Oh,
LinkedIn.
thank you.
I'll put a link in the show notes for folks to check that out. That was a really great example where you basically walked through, starting out in Python as an example. Here's strings, variables, super, super basics. Did you produce all of that at home, or did you go to how did you pull that off? Because it looked
No.
like you did it in a movie, like pro movie skills.
Yeah, so for that was like pre-COVID. And I flew over to Carpinteria and I recorded it there in the LinkedIn Learning Studio. Honestly, that was the most fun ever recording a course. I felt like a real celebrity and I would just laugh all day. So I would record and then in between I was just like laughing hysterically uh, because it was literally so much fun. Months and months of work, of course, because there
Mm.
was lots of research and writing scripts and going back and forth with producers and content managers. And then it was like, this is the big week, Annyce. You're flying out to Carp and now it's time to record. And really, really happy. Like the post production was amazing. I would just say something like, I want to see a lizard with a calculator here. And then like there you then I was looking at post production and there was a lizard with a calculator. Like it was just incredible.
Wow.
I really, really love working with the folks there.
So that's not like a house. That's like a set because it looks like you're in your living room.
Yeah, it's like literally a set.
I got to get my green screen situation better because I'm in this bedroom here, and all I have is my little LED lights, and I haven't got any art yet, and I need to get my background situation better.
But it looks cool. It looks like a gaming, like those Twitch streams.
It looks cool, I guess, but it's also like it sends a certain message. This is what I call my $1 million room, but it's only $300 because I have these are IKEA Billy shelves, a $50 LED, and this
Oh.
couch has a slipcover on it. So it looks like there's a lot of money in this room, but it's really all just me at Goodwill.
But the wall color also really adds to like
It's funny
the
that you
the
mentioned that.
allure.
So I don't know. I mean, I can see your background here. You've got this kind of like nice, it looks like almost a mustard or a yellow background on your wall. I've got a nice chocolate wall. It's a deep, deep chocolate. There's no color like this anywhere in my house. And I did that because I wanted this room to feel like a different place. The wall covering is different. The slip cover on the chair was there because it's actually a couch from another set. And I didn't want to see that part of the house in this part of the house. So I tried to nest. I made it my own place. Is this your office that you're in right here?
Yeah, this is my office. I mean, like I said, privileged to have an office because when
Hmm.
it's over, it's over. I just walk out and close this door,
Yeah.
and that feels great. I really feel for. I know when we first went, remote for a lot of my colleagues, they were like, "Oh, I can't get away from work now,"
Hmm.
and I was like, "Yeah, how do you do it? How do you do it?" Like I bought this house
Yep.
with the office. I was like, if I'm gonna buy a house, I must have an office.
Wow.
Like I already knew that working remotely is important to me, and I was almost ready for this lockdown to happen. And I'm just telling people, like, look, you gotta find some way to shut it off
Yeah.
because otherwise, work just completely seeps into everything else you do.
Yeah. I've really struggled with the inability to go to like Starbucks or McDonald's or anywhere that has free Wi-Fi and sit. That's the number one thing that I miss is I used to just go get a $1 soda, use the Wi-Fi until they, look at me weird and ask me to leave. And that was like my standard thing was like, see what kind of local business I could abuse for 4 hours. And now I'm stuck here and that kind of sucks.
It's definitely not the same. Um, it's not the same as it used to be. Like there's a lot more meetings. So I feel like maybe the people who were in the office were just like secretly meeting with each other all day long.
Hmm.
And then now that they're not in the office anymore, they're like, let's invite more people to our meetings. I know it's just like meeting overload. So yeah, I'm always ducking and dodging meetings as much as I can.
Well, since you're a director of engineering, you can control the meetings, right? You can like, we don't need this meeting. This could be an email.
I just have to say, like, wait, who's here? Okay, they know almost as much as I know. Okay, not coming. just, just try not to go. It's like, oh, too much.
Cool. Well, I really appreciate you chatting with me today and helping us understand why sharing like what you know is a great way to feel connected to your team, feel connected to the community.
Thanks so much for having me, Scott. This was awesome.
We've been chatting with Annyce Davis, and this has been another episode of Hansel Minutes, and we'll see you again next week.